DRPAK here, Eric, you son of a great woman, PhD candidate at AUT. Shout out to your mother. And a reference to a movie for those that know. We are here with fellow real doctor, actual doctor, not a physician, PhD holder, WNBF Pro. There are more acronyms. There's a CSCS, and there is an accredited sports nutritionist of some sort. I don't remember the full acronym.
Accredited Sport Nut O.
The classic. You're somebody who's gotten shredded many times. And when I say shredded, I mean shredded to the actual bone. Shredded. Not really, I don't know where I was going with that phrase, but properly shredded. Stage shredded, bodybuilding, natural world level shredded. And I want to have you here. And I want to ask you a bunch of questions around the process of getting shredded and whether you think it is for everyone. And obviously there's competition shredded, but there's also photo shoot shredded, or whatever you want to call it, where let's say for men around 10%, where you have a full six pack, you're very, very lean, and you are just, maybe a couple of months away from being able to be on stage. Arguably for many people watching this channel, getting shredded is one of those sort of default must-do things if they want to be a participant in the culture of lifting, and more specifically in the culture of not necessarily strictly bodybuilding, but bulking, cutting, and so on and so forth. What is your opinion on getting shredded being sort of a default goal for everyone? And do you think that's appropriate for everyone? And what are some common misconceptions about getting shredded?
Yeah, I think it's generally counterproductive. The default assumption and even the process of trying to get all the way shredded. It does teach you some things. You will learn a lot. But for the typical person who's interested in non-competitive bodybuilding, the act of trying to get shredded is probably something that is going to have a higher likelihood of derailing them and producing a negative experience, and essentially just halting their progress in the weight room and towards their goals of being more muscular than it is to be something that they look back on and go, yeah, that was a great idea.
Yep.
So I can explain why, but in a very straightforward term, I think the way to view this is that competitive bodybuilders must get shredded to compete in their sport. Recreational bodybuilders are after something quite different. But what they should be after, in my opinion, is a sustainable physique that is as muscular as they can get it. And when I say muscular, I mean the combination of visible muscularity, having some level of definition, and also muscle size. But the sustainable component is critical. The reason why most people are interested in bodybuilding is because they like the look. And you can get a semblance of the look, and I think you can develop an impressive physique without getting shredded. And moreover, trying to get shredded typically results in that getting derailed anyway, and people often overshooting the point when they even started dieting in the first place, if not now, sometime down the track, as they try to maintain an unsustainably lean physique. So sustainability is the key for the recreational bodybuilder. Whatever body composition they're trying to get to, it should be something they can maintain. And a lot of the times people have misconceptions about what is actually sustainable.
Nice. Yeah, I like that you said that, because I feel that a lot of people go, I like the end product and the idea of having a few pictures of myself shredded. That would be cool. But then they don't really consider what it takes in order to get there. What are the actual benefits of getting, let's not say bodybuilding shredded, because that's only a few, but getting very, very lean? Are the benefits that many men assume you get there, or is it more like, okay, yep, looking shredded?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think many men are under the impression that to be acceptable to their peers or to the opposite sex or to the same sex, they need to look a certain way. And I'm not going to sit here and deny that physical attractiveness doesn't exist. But at the same time, any kind of deep, meaningful connection and deriving meaning from life and having a good relationship is going to be dependent upon everything else and not that.
Yeah.
So if you are seeking some type of external validation from looking a certain way, you might get it, but it won't be fulfilling to the degree you think it is. There's nothing wrong with going, you know what, I want the challenge of trying to develop a bodybuilder-like physique. I want to have a photo shoot. I want to be able to look back on that, and I want to see if I can do it. Nothing wrong with that, but I think you need to know what you're getting into. And you need to have realistic expectations of the challenges that you're gonna face when trying to do it. And there's real physiological reasons as to why people don't just walk around shredded all the time. And even bodybuilders don't stay shredded. Because hey, I tell you what, contest prep would be a whole lot easier if you could just be like, you know what, I feel like competing tomorrow.
Yep.
But you can't.
For the majority of people, the status and the praise and that sort of, all those perks can be gained just from gaining muscle and not being overly fat.
I would agree. Most of the time, I think people operate in specific silos and echo chambers that tend to reinforce certain viewpoints. And it kind of subverts your own perception of reality. A really good way of looking at this is just look at the comments on any video of a natural bodybuilder, because there's nothing in the middle. You'll get, what's the point? Why would you do this? You look like a swimmer, you're small. Or you get, there's no way you can develop that physique naturally. You're a fake natty, you're secretly on gear. They both can't be right.
Yes.
You know? But there are people who have been so frequently exposed to anabolic steroid use, filters, straight up Photoshop, and just, you know, the magic of bodybuilding that's always existed, choosing the right angles, posing well, etc., that anyone who doesn't look like they could place top 10 in an untested national level show looks small or unimpressive to them. And then you've got people who are so black-pilled, they think that developing any level of muscularity requires all of those things, and that the industry is just a whole big scam, and everyone's on steroids, and you know, what's the point? Yeah. And it all comes back to, therefore, you should just take steroids, right? Either way, which is the beauty. And I think it's important to just lift your head when you're in a commercial gym sometime, or in the supermarket. Like, just simply having a reasonable level of muscle mass is incredibly important for your health. It can make a huge difference in the way you look. And a lot of people who are trying to stay lean all the time, they short circuit just their newbie gains.
For a lot of people, you have studies as well that, you know, people hear, oh, these participants made significant gains in 12 weeks. And they have these relatively small time frames. And I remember both you and Alberto Nunes really trying to highlight the idea that, hey, in order to gain muscle mass and to get an appreciable level of muscle mass, especially after those first couple of years where you make newbie gains, that's not going to happen in 3 months of semi-bulking or gaining a bit of weight 1 week, then not gaining the next week and just lifting. You need significant periods of time consistently being in the gym, pushing yourself, but also supporting that outside the gym with, at the very least, a very slight surplus. This idea that, oh, unless I am lean or get lean for the summer, but beyond healthy lean, I get this like semi-shredded sort of look, I'm doing something wrong or I'm being lazy. I think that ends up blackpilling a lot of people and putting them in a vicious cycle where they eventually make much less gains and they end up enjoying the process much less because they feel obliged to have to do that.
Absolutely. As a coach, I can tell you that the vast majority of people never get out of the intermediate phase. Some of them, it's because they don't know how to push progressive overload. And you'll see them in the gym, but at least they're still training. At least they're staying healthy. And I'm far less concerned about the guy who's doing the same set of 10 of lat pull downs that he's done for the last 10 years.
Bless him.
He's in the gym. We're happy, right? But I'm much more concerned about the intermediate who got to the intermediate phase and was stuck there because of the beliefs they had about nutrition and the cyclical crash dieting, binge eating that they went through to try to maintain an unrealistic physique for them all the time that eventually had them fall out of love with lifting. I think that's quite tragic. And now they don't even train anymore.
Yes, 100%.
And you see it a lot because they get spit up and chewed out, partially because this belief they have that they're doing it wrong if they don't look the way, or at least, 40% of the way their favorite influencer looks. And the reality is that most of the influencers you see who walk around shredded, you're gonna think, oh, they're on steroids. No, I mean, they might be, but there's a couple of things going for them. For one, the reason why they have been selected by the algorithm is because they specifically have an incredible outlier physique, which means they have incredible outlier genetics. And instead of just saying, it's genetics, like blanket statement, what I mean is that they probably have a lower intervention point for body fat that is lower than most people. They probably have behaviors that have supported staying towards that lower intervention point, And even if they are slightly below their lower intervention point, where they are getting a physiological response that makes them a little hungrier, downregulates their energy expenditure, it might be worth it to them because it's part of their business and they've learned to live like that. And if we go by the 2023 IOC guidelines for relative energy deficiency in sport, they're probably still experiencing, say, facilitative low energy availability. It's not actually debilitative in their life. But a lot of people don't have those genetics, and they're in a state of true low energy availability and experiencing symptoms of REDS. They're living parts of contest prep that bodybuilders live and trying to stay that way.
Yeah.
And that's just not sustainable. And eventually they're like, this is terrible, the fitness industries, or diet culture, and I'm out of here.
Yep.
And who can blame them? But the only way out of that is to get a true perspective on this and go, okay, if I want to look muscular, I do have to dedicate years to looking muscular and setting up an environment that will support that. And then if and when I want to get shredded, I better have a strong reason. And I need to know that it's a destination that I go to for a period of time. It's a vacation. I'm not trying to move there. I'm not trying to buy a home. It's very challenging, and this is to give a little credit to the influencers, to communicate in a short form platform all the things they've learned over typically years, the behaviors they've generated and the lifestyle they've cultivated to support their job. They know that the metrics that they get when they're leaner are better on social media. They make more sales, they get more clients. Whatever they do on social media that is in the fitness industry is probably going to be better when they're leaner. So they have a strong incentive, and then they do things to manipulate their life around their job to make it easier. And you can't tell someone, well, it took me 3 years of tracking macros and then I got too obsessive, so then I backed off and then I figured out a habit-based way of doing that. And then I make sure I take a walk between each one of these videos I film so that I get my step count up to something that actually regulates my hunger. And I really only eat and buy, single item food ingredients. No, going through that is A, challenging to do in short form content, and B, probably not their main content on average. There are some good people out there who do talk about that, absolutely. I think, you and I are both people like that who discuss some of these sustainable strategies. But most of the time, you're just seeing them market the benefits of the outcome rather than the processes and the behaviors needed to get there in the first place. So what people often focus on is crash diets, or just tracking macros, or doing a lot of cardio, or just trying to out-train things, or clean versus dirty foods. And they are unfortunately not being taught the long-term behavior change strategies that will help them in a hedonically enjoyable, low-activity, Western industrialized food environment that is conducive to weight gain, not weight maintenance. They're not learning how to maintain weight, how to manipulate their own environment so that it's a little more like it should be for humans, at least evolutionarily, to where we would maintain whatever weight we're at. And when you look at some of the studies on pre-industrial, post-agricultural settlers, people who still live lives as though it was 1600, there's research on some of these people in North America, and the men, they're getting on average 20,000 steps per day-ish, and they walk around at 10% body fat, on average. And you can do that. I'm not saying that you should be 10% body fat. What I'm saying is that when you read these studies, you're interested in what are they doing? Oh, they have a high step count. Okay, well, why? Oh, they have to make their own food. Okay, what are they eating? Oh, they're still eating high calories. They're eating 3,800 calories a day. Oh, but it's mostly single item food ingredients. It's not super, processed food that's super tasty and makes you want to eat more of it. It does include some, butters and fats and, high carb items, and has sugar and all that. But okay, their whole food environment is much different than we have. So what would we do to try to make something more sustainable for ourselves? That conversation is not being had, unfortunately. So I think what's important to understand is what needs to go into the big picture lifestyle you live to produce sustainable behaviors which will help you maintain weight after you do a cut. Because most people that do a cut that's probably not ideal in the first place with no thought of maintenance.
Yeah.
Right? And then they will just kind of stay in cut mode until they can no longer sustain it. If maybe people took an approach of getting to where they needed to go in a sustainable way, or at least the lowest level of restraint required, and then actually going through a purposeful maintenance phase and having a plan for maintenance afterwards, and then also understanding that 20% body fat's healthy, 15% body fat's healthy, probably 25% body fat is healthy so long as you're active. I think if all of those things were understood, then sure, we could have a conversation about, how lean can you get, where should you stay, but ultimately, those conversations aren't being had. And people think maybe it's normal to be constantly hungry or lethargic or to not sleep well. It's not, you know? And if you're at a body fat percentage that is healthy for you, it shouldn't feel unhealthy. A lot of people talk about these arbitrary cutoffs. It's 8%, 10%, 12%, or 15%. I don't know why those are the numbers for males, but that's just what is randomly thrown around on the internet. It's actually quite individual.
Yeah.
And you might be the lucky soul who it's 10%, or you might be the unlucky soul, quote unquote, who is 20%. But I can tell you that if you're constantly food focused, while eating enough calories, while getting a decent number of steps and following a relatively healthy diet, it's probably unsustainably lean, or you don't have a good relationship with food or your body at this point for that to be what you're currently focused on or doing. And that is what you need to fix first before you think about getting shredded.
100%. Yeah, and I think that's a good way to wrap it up. The body dysmorphia is not going to go away by getting shredded. Lift weights, develop a healthy relationship with your body image issue, with Eric Helms as well, if you want. He's available.
I meant your body.
Your body, which is Eric Helms' body. As long as you're confident in yourself and you're healthy and you're lifting weights, you are already, to the eyes of the majority of people, and those that look at you in a weird way are freaks, you're looking healthy, jacked, and you're looking like you're on your shit. Nobody is going to look at your delts and say, yeah, but the striation there, that's not looking great, or the rear delt is not perfectly proportional to your front. Anyways, closing this off, lift weights, do your shit. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, buy Rascal Apparel, 10% off, DRPAK, buy the Muscle and Strength Pyramids, some of the books that many of us grew up on. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Buy the blood-clad books. Boom!